Before I read in, are there any items that wish to be pulled? I'm just thinking that anyone would like to be read separately.
Sorry,
To pull out number 9.
number 9? Okay.
8 and 9, okay, since they're sister
8 and 9.
items.
Yes.
I missed, sorry, go ahead.
Okay, so I have 8 and 9. Are there any others? Okay, perfect. Thank you, sir. I'll go ahead and read in tonight's consent agenda, beginning with heading number 5, consent public hearing items A and B. So that's subsection A, plats, beginning with new plats, item number 2. Oso Ranch preliminary plat of 45.523 acres. Item number 3, Kings Landing Unit 3, a final of 21.691 acres. Item number 4, Kings Landing Unit 4, final plat of 29.640 acres. Item number 5, Laguna Vista Shores, Block 5, Lot 7R, a replat of .291 acres. Item number 6, Flower Bluff and Encinal Farm and Garden Tracts, Block 21, Lot 14C and 15B, a replat of 19.32 acres. Item number 7, Fifth Quarter Industrial Park, a preliminary plat of 22.88 acres. Under heading B, new zoning, we have item number 10, which is case 0322-03, Sergio and Marta Guerrero. It is a request at 6801 Sandra Lane from the RS6 Single Family 6 District to the RM1 Multifamily District. Staff recommends approval. Item number 11, we have case number 0322-04, Corpus Christi Island Apartment Villa Management Group, LLC, and Thomas Weber, LLC. This is located at 3802 Saratoga Boulevard, also known as State Highway 357, at a request from the RM1 Multifamily District to the RM3 Multifamily District. Staff recommends approval. Staff also recommends approval of the time extension, and regarding the plats, we find that the plats meet the requirements of the Technical Review Committee along with State Local Government Code, and the UDC Technical Review Committee recommends approval. That concludes tonight's consent agenda, and if there are any questions, I'd be more than happy to address them.
I have one question on item number 11.
Yes, sir.
That property is the property adjacent to the liquor store?
Correct, specs, that's correct.
And based on the updated AQs, there's no interference with, I know there's already a base zoning of RM1, but there's no interference with the APZ2 or?
Correct, it is located outside of the ACU's boundary by a pretty significant margin.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Any other comments for staff, questions for staff before I open up for public comment? If there's anyone here wishing to speak on items 2 through 7, 10, 11, please come forward at this time. Okay, seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing. And I'm going to ask for further comment or a motion on items, again, 2 through 7, 10, and 11.
I'll make a motion that we approve items as presented, 2 through 7, 10, and 11.
You have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor for approval of items 2 through 7, 10, and 11 as presented by staff, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, Mr. Demas, we'll
Thank you.
move to item 8.
Yes, so item 8 and 9 are sister items regarding Saratoga Downs Unit 4A, which is a final plat of 15.51 acres. And item number 9, the associated item, is a request for a street waiver and a half-street, which we're recommending a conditional approval. That conditional approval of the right-of-way reduction is subject to 2 sidewalks being shown on the street cross-section and the approval of the half-street request.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
The variance for the sidewalk, okay, so I know that you have the proposal that it's the 40 feet right away, but it was at 46, I think. And now, I'm just a little confused on how much they're really going to make the square footage they're going to put the street, how much they're taking away, something about they're going to put the square footage for the sidewalk. Okay, can you explain that?
So the pavement section itself, the actual street section, is still a 28-foot pavement section. So the width of what we drive down every day, that is not changing. What they're reducing is the width of the right-of-way to 40 feet, and originally proposing a sidewalk only on one side. What we as staff are saying as conditional is that we would like to see sidewalks on both sides of the street. And then there was also a request for a half-street on the road that is all the way to the west side of the property. And we're also requesting that it would have adequate means for pedestrians.
Right, so that's going to go all the way, I guess, because I don't see the.
Sure, I can bring it up.
Could you bring it up, please?
Absolutely.
Where are they taking up the footage? Is it from the outside of the sidewalk or between the sidewalk?
Well, your typical residential cross-section is a 50-foot right-of-way with a 28-foot pavement section with sidewalks on both sides, curb and gutter. In this case, the UDC does provide alternative street designs that can go down to 46 feet and sometimes even all the way down to 40, even in some cases a little bit less. But in all those instances, the pavement section doesn't change. It remains at 28 feet. So regardless if you're at a 50 or a 46, it's the same pavement section. But part of that request is to deviate from that 50-foot is that we're saying we would like to see still sidewalks instead of just on one side, which is what the UDC calls for.
The typical section with 28-foot grass median between the back of the curb and the sidewalk that's
4 feet, correct.
4 feet, and then you have your sidewalk, and then trying to do the math in my head.
You're essentially reducing 5 feet of your easement area on the outside to bring it in 10 feet to a 40-foot right-of-way.
So it'd be basically coming in right as opposed to.
Correct. So here on your screen, this is Saratoga Downs. And as you'll see, you have Martin Street, which is part of the half street. You have Lands Drive to the south, which is also your half street. Down the center is your, let's see if I can zoom in a little more. Street in question is traversing the property where the reduction is, and this is where we're asking for sidewalks on both sides.
So does that mean that some of the land on the units, the lot size are going to be a little smaller?
No, they still have to meet the same 4,500 square
Okay.
feet, 45 feet wide. Any improvements always have to be, well, I shouldn't say always, majority of the time are in the right-of-way. There's very few instances where we'll have a pedestrian easement or a sidewalk easement. Typically, you'll see those with PUDs, simply because the roadway is so small. But in this case, there is adequate room to fit the sidewalks within the right-of-way itself. Even reduced at 40 feet, it can still fit those 2 sidewalks. And that was our condition for supporting the waiver.
Right, I'm just mentioning this because aren't this a RS 4.5?
Correct.
Yes, and being the fact that they are RS 1.5, I think the last previous meetings that we had, we were talking about how some of the, I guess residents who were living there were having an issue with their vehicles being parked, and pedestrians were not able to utilize the walkway part, right?
Correct.
So I just wanted to bring this up to make sure that it's going to be something almost the same size as all the others.
Correct. So regardless of the zoning, no one can block a sidewalk with their vehicle. That is still a parking enforcement issue. So the final house design obviously hasn't been submitted yet, or the location of the driveways, but we do bring that to their attention during every plan review. Now, make sure that you're providing enough room, that you're not having any overhang. And the thing is, it's not everyone drives, not all vehicles are equal. So one neighbor may have a small car like mine, or you could have a neighbor that has the biggest F-350 you can buy. Not to pick on anyone with a big truck, but it's just that you could have some folks that are more conscientious of it, and then you're going to have some that are not. But that's why we have parking enforcement.
No, I understand. It's just been an issue because, first of all, these big old trucks barely fit into these RS 4.5 garages, which means that the people need to park their vehicles in the driveway. And there's usually 2 to 3 people that live in a home like that, which are 2 or 3 vehicles. So it just seems to be an issue that they're blocking the sidewalk. And
That is also a discussion when we get into the cross sections of, they'll have tied sidewalks. So if you tie the sidewalk to the back of the curb, you will pick up a few extra feet where normally you would have that separation of grass between the curb and the sidewalk. By moving the sidewalk up, you will now have more room. So yes, technically at the end of the day, a bumper or hitch could be extending, but it would be extending into grass and not interfering with moving through a sidewalk. So there's design ways of dealing
Okay.
with the issue.
all right, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I just drew out the street section. So if you lose the foot here and the foot here, and these are 4-foot sidewalks, right?
Correct.
So you'd have to make it up with 6 inches within the grass median. To satisfy some of her concerns, if you could take up the entire 3 foot on either side from the median, then you still have the same length of driveway, correct? As opposed to taking it out of the buffer on either side of the sidewalk.
Correct. They can still establish their driveways as standard. What we try to have the discussions during the design phase of the plat is, if you foresee issues coming about, you could move that sidewalk a little bit closer to the curb just to solve the problem up front. But it's not an obligation. It's merely just best practice that we've seen to address the exact issue Commissioner Salazar Garza brought up.
Cool.
Mr. Deems, clarification on the, and I may have, I think I read this wrong or may have in this. I thought I read something about that they were proposing this single sidewalk on the side that there were no homes. So I was reading that as being this along this, I believe it's a drainage area that is not subdivided there. And I thought that was because they were trying to resolve the depth of those lots by only having sidewalk on the double-loaded side instead of the single-loaded side. Is that not what they're?
Let's pull up the comments just to be safe. I know that was some discussion early on. Right. So what I'm comparing against are both notes and the cross sections themselves. Let's go back to our folder. So they are showing a sidewalk on this one, on one side, And then the half-street sections for Lands and Martin. I do recall a discussion that Mr. Vice Chair, that you're referencing early on, that there would be only one side on the master drainage channel, but I believe we as staff maintained our position that it would be on both sides. Because that's what's on, it's kind of a little blurry to read, but there's a sidewalk portion here on both sides of this updated.
Well, the biggest reason I guess I'm asking the question, because at this point, if it's laid out such that in order to achieve what is required to where there's essentially enough space for the vehicle not to block the sidewalk, and introducing, if that was what they were asking for, then physically is the width of those two back-to-back lots enough to achieve, the parking and the homes on those lots? Just
Oh, sure.
physically.
It was
I know that still has to be done, but functionally, is it even big enough? If that's the question there, if that's
Yes.
what they were trying to achieve.
Yes, the purpose of the sidewalk, 1 versus 2, was more of just the design choice of only having one sidewalk. It was not because of a preference of meeting any potential risk of blocking the sidewalk. It was purely, they originally only wanted one side to have a sidewalk.
Got it. Okay.
But we took into account there's a school, Los Encinos School is just to the north. I'm assuming you will have starter homes with school-aged children. It would be better to have sidewalks on both sides,
Right.
in order for children to get to school. But no, it was one of those ancillary conversations about potentially blocking, and that's where we talked about the idea about tied sidewalks, but it was not the driving reason behind it.
So this is not a function of just there's not enough width in that overall section they're trying to create to actually put that, they would have to eliminate a row of homes.
Correct.
Or
It was
something.
purely
Yeah.
1 versus 2.
Any more questions before I open up for public hearing? Yeah, I'm going to open it up for public hearing on items 8 and 9.
Mr. Vice Chairman, Commissioners, my name is Bart Brazelton Development, and we are working with MVR on this project. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. Just a couple of things I think might be helpful as we look into this, as you look into the questions. One is that this project started over 15 months ago. It has been 15 months to get this plat to you today. 15 months ago, 2 of our largest subdivisions were built with the 46-foot wide street design, which has sidewalk on one side. We have had numerous subdivisions with a reduced section from 46 to 40. Now, the 46 is in the street design manual. You guys probably see it quite a bit. Many times before, we've taken that 46 and reduced it to 40 and used it in several subdivisions that you guys have, that this body, perhaps many of you here, have approved. So the creation, where the idea came from, goes back quite a bit. London Town, one of our 2 largest master plan communities, every road is 46 feet wide, every right-of-way with sidewalk on one side of the street. And Rancho Vista, our other big master plan subdivision, there are several sections with sidewalk on one side of the street. That has since fallen out of favor, and that is why we responded with this design. It is the design that you've seen does increase the driveway depth by virtue of the sidewalks being tied. There's actually more room between the front of the garage door and the driveway than there is on a typical RS 4.5 lot. So I'd be happy to answer any other questions. I wanted to bring those two items to your attention. We're very excited about the neighborhood and look forward to getting it on the ground. It's going to have it's a neighborhood that has, I no longer say, I dare even say starter homes anymore. More affordably priced homes may be the better term. But if there are any questions or concerns, I'm here. I'm happy to answer those questions for you. Thank you.
Are there anyone else like to speak on either items 8 or 9? Does anybody have any further comments for staff or for the applicant? Mr. Demas, I just want to clarify. So this is what's on the table here is a conditional approval.
Correct.
And all the other relevant items that in the applicant's application are resolved, and this particular item is deferred essentially to will be approved, I guess, with the permits.
Precisely. All other TRC comments have been resolved. Everything receives our recommendation. Our just one condition, which is half streets regardless have to have a street waiver or approval of the planning commission. So no matter even if the sidewalk issue didn't come up as a question, you would still have a half street condition to discuss. The UDZ very clearly says that, that's one of those things the planning commission has to directly authorize. But that is not to taint or say that there is some other issue with this plat. This plat is recommended for approval minus the one item that we are asking a conditional approval in regards to the sidewalk.
Okay. And then with the half street, that is also conditional in that it will be completed when the next phase is.
Exactly, which those of you who remember names, South Texas Bone and Joint is the very next property, and they're going through various phases of platting and development.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? If not, seeking a motion?
I make a motion that we approve 8 and 9 as presented by staff.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Okay, item 12.
Yes, sir, thank you. So item 12 and 13, very similarly, are sister items, both regarding Pompano Place Block 1, Lot 6R, a replat of .515 acres. And similarly, the question is about sidewalks. So the presentation I have on the screen is to quickly go over the case notes. So as you can see, the property is located in the Flower Bluff area, just to the west of the intersection of Mediterranean and Laguna Shores. So this slide is to show you that on the urban transportation plan, you have Mediterranean Drive, which is designated as a C1 collector, which is relatively our smallest collector, and then Laguna Shores, which is also a parkway collector, a little bit wider right-of-way compared to your C1, but also has collector status. Here is a view of the subject property. Looking to the west and to the east. And this is just a quick slide to show you the actual relatively meets and bounds of the plat that's being requested, the property to be platted. Okay, so whenever we are going through our staff analysis, we always like to present factors that the applicant is proposing that are in favor of granting a waiver and factors that are in opposition of granting such a waiver. So first, on the side of supporting the waiver, that there are currently no adjacent sidewalks located along Mediterranean Drive to connect to. Second, that there are open ditches along the right-of-way for Mediterranean, which potentially could make it unsafe. So in this case, we're only talking about the sidewalk just for this lot, not the overall network, but as you can see, it's a little bit close to a corner, so it has the potentiality of starting a network. Number 3 is you have the waiver will not substantially be detrimental to public health, safety, or in general welfare. And number 4, it will not affect the adjacent property in a manner to restrict or render the property unfeasible for essentially for development. So factors against the sidewalk waiver, which means they would have to construct, would be first, Mediterranean Drive is a collector street on the transportation plan. Number 2, the sidewalk network does exist on the opposite corners of Laguna Shores and Mediterranean Drive. Number 3, since Mediterranean Drive is on the transportation plan, it is also on the bike mobility plan and the ADA plan, which means it doesn't qualify for the automatic exemption administratively. So as you know, in the past, we've talked about how there is new sections to the UDC that allows us as staff to render administrative waivers. But in this case, because it is located on this section is located on multiple plans, it does not qualify for an administrative waiver, hence why it's before you today. And then lastly, there is a bus stop located 220 feet away from the corner of this lot. So that is about 4 lots, more or less, your standard RS6s away from the subject property, which is fairly close to a bus stop. Keeping all of those factors in mind, staff, we are recommending disapproval of the waiver. And there are 2 paths that Planning Commission essentially has. You can choose to follow or decline staff's recommendation. And keeping that in mind, you may approve with conditions, or deny the waiver request. That being said, if there are any questions, I'd be more than happy to address them.
Any questions before I open this for public hearing? Okay, is there anyone wishing to speak on item 12 and 13? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing. Do I have a motion or further questions or comments?
I make a motion that we approve the sidewalk waiver and the requested plat with the variance as, well, not as presented, but as per the applicant's request.
A second.
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. Director's report.
There's no report this evening.
All right, thank you very much. I guess with that, is there any agenda items that anybody would like to bring up before we close the meeting?
I do have a question. Andrew, are y'all planning to have the training discussions regarding the,
Yes, now that we're fortunately back at the 5:30 time slot, we can find a light agenda, and I believe the next topic was zoning 101. So I will be back in front of you with some slides, and we'll kind of have the same dialogue and discussion about zoning, which I know is everyone's favorite topic to talk about, but definitely, most definitely, we will restart the training program.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Updates on the Midtown Area Development Committee?
No, but I can reach out to the planning department and check on their status, and we can present that information to you. I can always email that, a response from them to you, and put you in contact with those folks.
Okay, I've been chomping at the bit for this thing.
Okay, if there's nothing else, we'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you.